This is from Al Jazeera. Houthi drone strikes Tel Aviv. How significant is the attack? It's the first time that the Yemeni group are known to have hit Tel Aviv, signaling their growing reach.
Yemen's Houthi group has claimed responsibility for the drone that struck overnight in Tel Aviv, Israel, killing one person and injuring 8. Israel's media identified the dead man as 50-year-old Mr. Furter, who had moved to Israel from Belarus at the beginning of the Russian-Ukraine war. Last night's strike is unique. It's the first time the group is known to have hit Tel Aviv, though the Houthi have waged a continued campaign against targets that claim they're linked to Israel since the ongoing devastating war on Gaza broke out in October. The drone struck in central Tel Aviv in the early hours of Friday morning. The site itself is thought to be close to a number of hotels, many hosting those displaced from Israel's north border with Lebanon. A U.S. Embassy office is also close to the site of the attack. An initial inquiry indicates that the explosion in Tel Aviv was caused by the falling of an aerial target, and no sirens were activated. The incident is under thorough review, the Israeli military said in a statement, attributing its inability to detect the drone to human error rather than a system failure. The Israeli Army spokesman Daniel Hagari said in a video released on Friday evening that the aircraft had hit an apartment building. He said the drone was a Samad-3, an Iranian-manufactured craft that had been modified to extend its range. Iran has not commented on the attack or the Israeli allegation yet. According to Houthi spokesman Sari, According to Houthi spokesman Sari, the aircraft was a new type of drone named Jaffa that was capable of flying undetected through Israel's extensive air defense systems. Despite being just 50 miles from Gaza, Tel Aviv has been almost untouched by the carnage unfolding within the enclave since October. More than 38,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's relentless war on Gaza.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but it's so much more.
It's funny that they're still claiming the same numbers. It's like watching COVID numbers. Like, at one point they just stall, and then once you end up getting, like, that actual number, it's going to be, like, way worse than you ever imagined.
It's like that report that 186,000 Palestinians have actually died from the conflict.
Not to mention the amount that have died from the extent of the contact. The drone strike within Tel Aviv, the center for much of Israel's diplomatic functions, points to the growing reach of the Houthi arsenal, says analysts. The Houthi group has made extensive use of drones throughout its latest campaign. However, almost all the missiles and drones launched against Israel have been intercepted. None are known to have reached Tel Aviv. The Houthis have claimed many attacks on Israel before, but there's little evidence to indicate most of those came anywhere close to hitting, and certainly not kill and injure like this one, independent Yemen analyst Nick Brumfield told Al Jazeera. Notably, this is the first publicly confirmed Houthi strike in the Mediterranean rather than the Red Sea or Gulf of Aden. Along these vital maritime routes, the Houthi have targeted numerous ships that they say have links to Israel. In addition, they've been claiming strikes on Haifa in cooperation with Iran-backed groups in Iraq. But until now, those mostly seemed like grandstanding, said Brumfield. This is big.
Big PP.
Very big.
Houthis have big PP.
Israel has small PP, that's why it wants to mess with people around it, because it needs to feel like it's big. Houthi drones have also been a frequent target for Western strikes, with the United Kingdom, France, and the United States military all reporting destroying unmanned targets.
I believe last night's attack is part of the Houthi continuous escalation. Mayasa Shujan al-Din of the Yemen-based Sana Center for Strategic Studies said, suggesting that repeat incidents of Houthi drones reaching distant targets was going to become more common. What's interesting is the target and the long range, she told Al Jazeera. I know this is from CNN, but it was the only article at the time that was relevant.
I know a lot of what's going to come through is bullshit with the actual facts, but it's the facts that you can pull out.
It's not bullshit. It's just got so much bias on it. It's going to manufacture some sort of consent.
I guess that's the bullshit part I'm talking about.
We're not trying to manufacture the consent.
Right.
We just want to
be able to quote
certain information.
This is from CNN. Israel strikes Yemen for the first time following deadly Houthi drone attack. Here's what we know. For the first time, Israel has struck inside Yemen, following a deadly drone attack launched by the Houthi rebels on Tel Aviv.
Since the October 7th attacks by Hamas on Israel, the Houthis have been targeting shipping in the Red Sea in solidarity, they say, with Gaza. But these direct attacks on each other's soil between the Israeli military and an Iranian-backed rebel group risk creating a new front in a conflict that already threatened to spill over into the region. Israel's response came a day later, after the drone attack, when Israel aircraft hit the Yemeni port of Houthis. The attack, which marked the first time Israel struck Yemen, killed at least 6 people and injured scores more, Yemeni officials said. The Houthi-ran Al-Mashira TV said the strikes targeted oil facilities in the port on Yemen's west coast. Houthi spokesperson Mohammed Abdusalam said the strikes had also hit civilian targets and a power station. He slammed what he said was a brutal Israeli aggression aimed at increasing the suffering of the people of Yemen and pressuring the group to stop its support of Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the port was used by Iran to bring arms into Yemen. The port we attacked is not an innocent port. It was used for military purposes. It was used as an entry point for deadly weapons supplied to the Houthis by Iran. He's a terrorist. Netanyahu also said the operation, which hit targets over 1,000 miles from Israel's borders, showed Israel was serious about responding to threats. It makes it clear to our enemies that there is no place that the long arm of the state of Israel will not reach, Netanyahu said.
See how he says the long arm? That's that little pee-pee thing.
Israel's small pee-pee.
He's like, I want to make sure you guys know it's long. You know, it's long.
Don't you see how big pee-pee is?
Come on. You're nothing but a tiny
You're just
fucking
a schoolyard
dead
bully.
Yeah,
schoolyard bully. Neither side has suggested they are ready to back down. It's not in the Houthi DNA to de-escalate with Israel, Charles Lister of the Middle East Institute wrote on X. Houthi army spokesperson Sari said the Houthis have prepared for a long war with Israel and that Tel Aviv is still not safe. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, warned that the blood of Israeli citizens has a price, and that if Israelis are attacked, the result will be identical to which that has been seen in Lebanon and Gaza.
Aww.
What a pussy bitch. What a fucking pussy bitch.
Oh, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Oh, dude, what I did to you did at Gaza. On Sunday, the Israeli military said it had intercepted a missile approaching Israeli territory from Yemen, while the Houthis said they launched a number of ballistic missiles. The war in Gaza has already been accompanied by significantly heightened tensions between Israel and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. The two sides have been trading cross-border fire since October 8th, when Hezbollah fired at 3 Israeli border posts in solidarity with Palestinians. Any increase in hostilities between Israel and Iran's proxies is seen as deeply destabilizing in the region because it could push the two countries closer towards open warfare. Israel and Iran have already traded one direct exchange since October 7th. Few in the international community want to see it happen again. And since this has been published, the Houthis did fire more missiles, but from the reporting being done, it seems that those were intercepted by the IDF.
I don't support war, period. What's happening is unacceptable, and
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine. This is from the Daily Sabah. Pakistan recognizes Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu as terrorist. The Pakistani government has officially decided to recognize Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a terrorist and has called on the international community to do the same. And I support that decision.
He's a terrorist.
He's a terrorist. Lock him up.
I concur. According to the Dawn newspaper, Pakistan's Prime Minister's advisor, Rana, Information Minister Atullah Tara, and representatives from the TLP party held a joint press conference in the country's capital. Following a week of pro-Gaza demonstrations by TLP, the Pakistani government entered into negotiations with the party. The meeting concluded with both sides reaching an agreement. Under the agreement, the Pakistani government will officially recognize the Israeli Prime Minister as a terrorist and will invite the international community to do the same. Talks between the federal government and TLP representatives began on July 18th. As a result, the government announced it would accelerate its support for the Palestinian victims of Israeli oppression.
I'm glad it's happening, but I do have to say there is a such thing as too little too late. I mean, I'm glad it's happening now, but this should have happened.
Every country should be saying this.
It should have happened months ago.
The agreement was signed. Sanullah praised TLP's efforts for the Palestinian people and announced that the government would send more humanitarian aid to Gaza,
which Israel will not allow in.
Sanullah stated that over 1,000 tons of food and medicine would be sent to Palestine by July 31st. The government also agreed to provide medical aid to the Palestinian people and send healthcare personnel to the region. If the Palestinian government makes the necessary arrangements, injured Palestinians will be brought to Pakistan for treatment, Sanullah said, adding that schools and hospitals in Pakistan are open to provide education and medical facilities to Palestinians. Sanullah defined Israel as a terrorist state and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as a war criminal under international law. I see no lie. He emphasized that Pakistan will use every possible means to assist Palestinians and condemn Israel.
Please do it.
Demanding Netanyahu's prosecution, Sanullah stated, Netanyahu is a terrorist and a perpetrator of war crimes. He is responsible for the atrocities committed by Israel in Palestine. We call him a terrorist and urge the international community to recognize Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as a terrorist. We will not only boycott Israel, but also all products associated with Israel and any companies directly or indirectly involved in or aiding this oppression, Sanullah said. He revealed that a committee had been established to identify companies financially supporting Israel's attacks on Gaza and to ban their products.
This is great.
I know, but YouTube's going to ban us.
We're just reading the news.
We're just reading an article, man.
What
No,
do they mean?
BDS, there's a lot of anti-BDS in this country. So
BDS.
this is not popular to say.
BDS.
Boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel is
Oh, okay, yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
anti-BDS.
Well, every time I hear that, I always think BDSM. I don't know why, but
I do
that's
too.
straight where my brain goes. But I guess it is a type of bondage.
Yes.
Just not the one
Okay.
where we get off.
Sanullah said that the Pakistani government will not use products or services from companies that directly or indirectly assist Israeli forces in committing war crimes against Palestinians. He called on the international community to hold Netanyahu accountable for his actions and deliver him to justice. Based.
This is from The Intercept. The ICJ ruling confirms what Palestinians have been saying for 57 years. Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories is illegal, a form of apartheid, and must end, says the UN's High Court at The Hague.
The United Nations top court filed a ruling Friday that echoed what Palestinian advocates have been saying for decades. Israeli occupation of Palestinian land, including its settlements in the West Bank, is illegal and must end. The International Court of Justice's advisory opinion also called for reparations for Palestinians who have lived under Israeli occupation since it began in 1967, an unprecedented step for the court. The court also notably declared Israel's mistreatment of Palestinians to be a form of segregation and apartheid. It further ruled that nations cannot offer aid in support of illegal occupation without violating international law and upheld the Palestinians' right to self-determination. Advisory opinions from the ICJ are not legally binding and cannot in itself force a country to act, but their legal and moral weight can have significant influence on countries' decisions and foreign policy. Jessica Peak, an international law professor at UCLA, said the ruling has the potential to shift the international community's ability to push for Palestinian statehood. She added that the ruling exceeded her expectations, specifically around the issue of Israeli government's systematic abuses toward Palestinians. What was particularly surprising was that they basically made finding that Israel is creating a situation of apartheid against Palestinians within Israel, Peake said, because of the radically discriminatory laws and policies in place that basically treat Palestinians as second-class citizens. But some advocates for Palestinians living within the occupied territories are less enthusiastic about the ruling. Mack, an Israeli attorney and advocate for Palestinians in the West Bank, said the ruling does little to immediately change the lived reality for Palestinians. While ICJ officials read out the ruling on Friday from the Peace Palace in The Hague, Netherlands, Mack received new reports of Israeli settlers attacking Palestinians in the West Bank. The court just said the obvious, Mack told The Intercept. In the West Bank, it's business as usual unless governments have the political will to force both Israelis and Palestinians into implementing a two-state solution that gives Palestine sovereignty. How about one-state solution, just Palestine? Amid the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, Israel began its occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and annexed East Jerusalem. Soon after, Israel began to establish settlements inside the occupied territories, supporting Israeli civilians as they built communities atop land taken from Palestinians. While Israel withdrew its troops and settlements from Gaza in 2005, it continued to promote and expand its settlements in the West Bank, and in recent months, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right government has used its war in Gaza as a cover to expand its settlements at a rate faster than previous decades. One-state solution, Palestine. Palestine. The Israeli government immediately dismissed the ICJ ruling, with a defiant Netanyahu calling Jerusalem our eternal capital and referred to the West Bank as the land of our ancestors, using the biblical names Judea and Samaria. No false decision in The Hague will distort this historical truth, he said in a statement, and likewise the legality of Israeli settlement in all the territories of our homeland cannot be contested. B'Tselem, an Israeli-based human rights group, was among a host of organizations that welcomed Friday's ruling after decades of their own advocacy calling for an end to Israel's occupation. They said the international community has been avoiding the issue by buying Israel's claim that its occupation is temporary and that it is engaged in negotiations and diplomacy toward a solution.
Where? When? What? Sorry.
They're not partner for peace. The release of the ICJ's advisory opinion puts an end to these justifications, and now the international community must use every tool, criminal, diplomatic, and economic, to force Israeli decision makers to end the occupation, the group said on Friday. In recent months, more nations have officially recognized Palestine as a state, with Norway, Spain, and Ireland joining 143 other nations in recognition. The ICJ ruling, which declares Israel occupation an obstacle to Palestinian statehood, may embolden more nations to follow suit. In April, the U.S. vetoed a measure in the UN Security Council that would have recognized Palestine as a member of the UN. At the time, the U.S. said Palestinian statehood could only come from direct negotiations between Palestine and Israel. The United States sends billions of dollars of military aid to Israel each year. Israel made similar arguments in the lead-up to the ICJ's decision, stating that the ruling would interfere with ongoing negotiations. Separately, Israel's parliament this week also passed a resolution that rejects Palestinian statehood, calling it an existential danger of the state of Israel and its citizens. Friday's ICJ's decision, Peake noted, undercuts the notion and upholds Palestine's right to self-determination. The ICJ decision, I think, really will give states the legal backing or the legal cover that they need to recognize Palestine, Peake said, and insulate them a little bit from some of the political pressure that would come from the United States and Israel. Peake acknowledged that the UN has made declarations in the past condemning Israeli occupation, but most of those were issued by UN bodies that were organized to specifically address Palestine. A separate ICJ advisory opinion issued in 2004 declared Israel's 400-mile wall in the West Bank illegal. But the UN's top court has never before issued such strong language about the occupation with the backing of the majority of UN membership. I don't think this is going to change everything tomorrow, Peake said. Hopefully what this does do is provide an even stronger set of tools to states and to the international community to try and address some of what is going on in occupied Palestine.